What do you do when your world is turned upside down on what should be the happiest day of your life? When your first wedding anniversary ends with you in handcuffs, accused of stealing from your own mother-in-law? This is the story of Olivia Chin, a woman who was set up, humiliated, and left with nothing. But what she didn't know was that her darkest moment would become the catalyst for her greatest triumph. Stay tuned to see how Olivia took back control of her life, exposed the truth, and fought back with everything she had. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and empowerment. I never imagined that my first wedding anniversary would end with me in handcuffs, watching as my mother-in-law's smug smile grew wider while police officers dragged me away from my own home. But that's exactly what happened on what should have been the happiest day of my married life. The party was in full swing. Our backyard was overflowing with 50 of our closest friends and family, all celebrating under the soft glow of twinkling lights, glasses of champagne in hand. I wore my favorite red dress, the one Ethan had always told me made me look stunning. Everything seemed perfect until Eleanor, my mother-in-law, clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, I have something serious to discuss," she announced, her voice cutting through the noise of the party. Her usual false smile was gone, replaced by something colder, something far more sinister. My grandmother's diamond necklace, worth over $50,000, has disappeared from my room, and I know exactly who took it. My heart dropped into my stomach. Her eyes fixed on me, and the champagne glass nearly slipped from my fingers. The room fell into complete silence, and then, like a tidal wave, 50 sets of eyes turned to stare at me. This couldn't be happening. Not now. "Olivia!" she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "Return it now and maybe we'll forget about this unfortunate incident." Her words were heavy in the air, choking me, suffocating me. "What? I started to protest, but Ethan cut me off. "Olivia, did you take it?" His voice was colder than I had ever heard it. He didn't even look at me. "Mom's been telling me about things going missing for months." I didn't want to believe it, but are you serious? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ethan, you know I would never—" "The police are already on their way," Eleanor said, pulling out her phone. "I called them an hour ago. I have proof." The rest of the night became a blur. The police arrived minutes later as the guests watched in stunned silence. They searched my purse, then my closet, as if I were some kind of criminal. And then, hidden in my jewelry box, they found it. Eleanor's necklace wrapped in one of my scarves. "That's not mine!" I screamed as the handcuffs were snapped on my wrists. "I didn't put it there, Ethan. Please, you know me." But Ethan just stood there with his arm wrapped around his mother as they led me through the party in handcuffs. Eleanor's satisfied smirk was the last thing I saw before the police car door slammed shut. What they didn't know was that this wasn't the end of the story. This was just the beginning. Tomorrow, I would return with something that would wipe the smug smiles off their faces for good. My name is Olivia Chin, and this is the story of how I lost everything on my first wedding anniversary and how I fought back to reclaim not only my freedom, but my entire life. Let me take you back to 2 years ago when I first met Ethan. I was 27, working as an Ethanating manager at a tech company in Seattle. Life was good. I had just bought my first condo. My career was taking off, and I felt like I was finally becoming the person I wanted to be. Ethan quite literally crashed into my life one rainy morning at Starbucks. He spilled his coffee all over my white blouse and spent the next 10 minutes apologetically dabbing at the stain with napkins. Looking back, I wonder if Eleanor put him up to it, but at the time, all I saw was this handsome 32-year-old software developer with kind eyes and a shy smile. "Please let me buy you dinner to make up for it," he insisted. One dinner turned into 3, then weekend dates, and soon we were inseparable. Ethan was everything I thought I wanted. Successful, gentle, funny. He'd bring me coffee at work, leave sweet notes in my laptop bag, and always seemed to know exactly what to say when I had a rough day. 6 months into dating, I finally met Eleanor. I should have seen the warning signs that first night. "Oh, you work in Ethanating," she said over dinner, swirling her wine glass. "How nice! I always told Ethan he should date someone in a more established profession. Like my friend Jessica, she's a surgeon, you know. Ethan just laughed it off. Mom, stop, he said, but there was no real firmness in his voice. That should have been my first clue. Despite Eleanor's subtle digs, Ethan proposed 3 months later. It was romantic, a private dinner on a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. I said yes without hesitation. I was so in love, I ignored how quickly he wanted to set the wedding date. Just 2 months to plan everything. Ethan and I always dreamed of a spring wedding for him, Eleanor announced, taking over the planning before I could even open a bridal magazine. We'll handle everything, dear. Just show up and try not to mess anything up. The wedding was elaborate, all Eleanor's choices. My simple beach wedding dreams were replaced with a grand church ceremony, 300 guests I barely knew, and a reception that felt more like a society event than a celebration of love. But I kept quiet, wanting to make everyone happy. That was my biggest mistake. Things changed the moment we returned from our honeymoon. Eleanor started showing up at our condo unannounced. Just checking on my boys, she'd say, even though it was just Ethan and me. She'd rearrange our furniture, criticize my cooking, and somehow always managed to remind me that I wasn't good enough for her son. Ethan needs a proper home, Eleanor declared one day, just 3 months into our marriage. This little apartment isn't good enough. I found the perfect house in my neighborhood. Before I could even object, she had already scheduled the viewings. The house she chose was undeniably beautiful, a restored Victorian with a wraparound porch. But it was only 2 streets away from Eleanor's home. Ethan signed the papers without asking for my opinion. Mom knows best, he said when I tried to discuss it. Besides, she's helping with the down payment. We should be grateful. That house, although beautiful, soon became my prison, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Every decision, from the paint colors to the garden layout, had to be approved by Eleanor. She had a key for emergencies, which she used whenever she pleased. My space, my marriage, and my life felt like they were slipping through my fingers. Ethan just stood by, always siding with his mother and telling me to be more understanding. She's just trying to help, he'd say, as if that made it all okay. If only I had known then what I know now, that this wasn't just about them wanting control over my life. They wanted everything I had, everything I was. The anniversary party wasn't a celebration, it was the grand finale of their plan. The months leading up to our anniversary felt like watching a slow-motion train wreck. I could see disaster on the horizon, but I was powerless to stop it. It began with small things. My mail started disappearing bank statements, credit card bills, investment reports. When I mentioned it to Ethan, he shrugged it off. You probably just misplaced them. You've been so forgetful lately. But I wasn't forgetful. I'd been watching, noticing things like how Eleanor rifled through our home office when she thought I was in the shower, or how Ethan would have hushed phone conversations that abruptly ended when I entered the room. One Tuesday morning, I tried to log into my online banking account, only to find I couldn't. The password must have changed for security reasons, Ethan said, barely looking up from his laptop. I'll handle the bills this month. You don't need to worry about it. But I did worry, especially after finding a stack of documents in Eleanor's designer handbag one afternoon, papers with my signature on them. Signatures I didn't remember writing. Oh, those? Eleanor chuckled, her laugh sharp and dismissive when I confronted her. Just some house insurance papers Ethan asked me to drop off? Don't tell me you're becoming paranoid, dear. The gaslighting was constant. If I questioned anything, I was paranoid. If I stood up for myself, I was hysterical. If I tried to talk to Ethan privately, I was trying to drive a wedge between mother and son. My friends started drifting away, not that it surprised me. Eleanor had a way of making them feel unwelcome. Do you think those people are good enough to be in our social circle? She'd ask Ethan within earshot. They're so common. 2 months before our anniversary, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. I had just come back from the garden when I heard Eleanor and Ethan talking in the kitchen. Everything's ready, Eleanor was saying. The papers are all signed. After next month, she won't be able to touch any of it. Are you sure this will work? Ethan's voice was uncertain. Trust me, darling. By the time we're done, she'll have nothing. No money, no house, no reputation. Just like the others. Others? My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped the flower pot I was holding. What others? I started researching, digging into Eleanor's past. It wasn't easy. She'd carefully curated her online presence, but late at night, in private browsing mode, I found things. Forum posts from years ago, stories about other women, other marriages, and other accidents where money and property mysteriously changed hands. Eleanor had done this before. The anniversary party was her idea, of course. She insisted on handling everything, the guest list, the catering, the decorations. I wasn't allowed to help with any of it. Just focus on looking pretty, she said with that cold smile. That's what you're good at, isn't it? The morning of the party, I caught her in my closet near my jewelry box. She didn't see me. I'd frozen in the doorway, watching as she carefully placed something wrapped in silk inside. I should have checked what it was. I should have confronted her then and there, but I was still playing by her rules, still trying to keep the peace. That was my last mistake as Ethan's wife, but it would also be Eleanor's biggest mistake in her long con career, because this time, she'd chosen the wrong victim. This time, she'd picked someone who wasn't going to disappear quietly. She didn't know that I'd been keeping records of my own. Every conversation, every missing document, every suspicious transaction, all carefully documented and saved in places they couldn't reach. As I stood in the police station that night listening to their accusations, I realized something. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out how strong you are. The holding cell was cold that night. I sat on the hard bench, still in my red anniversary dress, makeup streaked with tears. The other women there looked at me with pity and curiosity. One of them, an older lady with kind eyes, shared her tissue packet. "First time in here, honey?" she asked. I nodded, trying to hold back fresh tears. "My mother-in-law, she set me up." "Eleanor Winters?" The woman's voice sharpened. "Tall, always wearing designer clothes, fake as a $3 bill?" My head snapped up. "You know her?" "Honey, half the women in my support group know her. She's done this before, but nobody's ever been able to prove anything." That conversation changed everything. The next morning, after they released me pending investigation, I didn't go home. Instead, I went straight to the bank. My hands were shaking as I approached the teller. "I'd like to check my account balance," I said, sliding over my ID. The teller's face said it all before she even spoke. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen, but your accounts have been cleared out. All transfers were authorized with proper signatures yesterday afternoon." I sat there stunned as the bank clerk's words echoed in my ears. While I was sitting in jail, they'd taken everything: my savings, my investments, even my emergency fund. Over $200,000 gone. I stumbled out of the bank, barely making it to a nearby coffee shop before my legs gave out under me. That's where Sarah Chen found me. "You look like you could use this," she said, sliding a fresh coffee across the table. "I'm Sarah, former detective, current private investigator, and I've been waiting for someone like you." I stared at her business card through blurry eyes. "What do you mean?" "Eleanor Winters has done this 7 times in the last 15 years, she said with a sharp glance. "Marriage, theft, public humiliation, rinse and repeat. But she's never faced justice because no one's ever fought back." Sarah leaned forward. "But you," she smiled. "You're different. You kept records, didn't you?" I nodded slowly. "Everything's in a secure cloud drive. Photos, recordings, documents." "Okay, and I bet you never gave them access to your work laptop?" Another nod. My company laptop was still untouched in my office. "Then we've got them." Sarah's eyes gleamed with confidence. "I've got 2 statements from 3 of Eleanor's previous victims. They've been too scared to come forward alone, but together—" Hope flickered in my chest for the first time since the handcuffs clicked shut. "What's our next move?" "First, we document everything from last night. Then we contact my friend at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit because this isn't just theft, it's a pattern of organized fraud." As Sarah outlined our plan, something shifted inside me. The fear and shame were still there, but now they were fuel for something else: determination. "One more thing," Sarah added as we left the coffee shop. "We need to move fast. Eleanor usually tries to sell her victims' properties within days of driving them out." My hands clenched into fists. Not this time. This time she picked the wrong woman to destroy. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Sarah moved me into a small motel, somewhere safe, while we built our case. The room wasn't much, but it became our war room. "First things first," Sarah said, spreading documents across the bed. "We need to prove the signatures on those transfer documents aren't yours." I opened my laptop and pulled up the photos I had secretly taken of the papers in Eleanor's bag. "Look at these dates," I pointed. "According to these, I signed over power of attorney while I was on a business trip in Chicago last month." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Can you prove you were in Chicago?" "Better," I smiled, pulling up my work calendar. I was giving a presentation to 200 people, live-streamed and recorded. That was our first break, but we needed more. I reached out to Janet, my company's IT manager. "Remember when you caught Eleanor trying to access my computer during that dinner party?" My hands shook as I typed the email. "I need the security footage." While we waited, Sarah made calls to her FBI contact. "The pattern is crucial," she explained. "Each case alone looks like a domestic dispute, but together it's organized crime," I finished. The next morning, everything started falling into place. Janet came through with the security footage, a clear video of Eleanor attempting to download files from my work laptop. Then came the bank records, showing a pattern of small transfers building up over months. But the biggest breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria, our housekeeper, showed up at the motel with a USB drive. "I knew something wasn't right," she said, hands trembling. "So I started recording their conversations on my phone whenever I cleaned. The things they said..." The recordings were damning. Eleanor and Ethan planning everything. How they'd chosen me for my assets. How they'd systematically isolated me. How they'd done it before. "Found it," Sarah announced late that night, staring at her laptop. 3 properties in different states, all sold under suspicious circumstances, all former wives. I felt sick, but focused. "How do we stop them from selling my house?" "Already on it." Sarah held up her phone. "My FBI contact is requesting an emergency freeze on all assets. They're building a RICO case." But we weren't done. Sarah had one more card to play. "We need to talk to the others," she said quietly. "Eleanor's previous victims. Are you ready for that?" The next day, in a private room at Sarah's office, I met them. 3 women, all with stories so similar to mine, it was scary. Abigail, Beatrice, and Camille. All were successful before they met Ethan. All were destroyed by Eleanor's schemes. "Nobody believed us," Abigail said, wiping tears. "Not the police, not our families." "This time will be different," I promised. "This time we have proof, but I need you to testify." They were scared. Eleanor had threatened them all. But seeing them find their courage, watching them agree one by one to stand with me, it was powerful. We worked through the night, meticulously piecing together our case. Every document, every recording, every shred of evidence was carefully organized. Sarah's FBI contact had been tracking Eleanor and Ethan's every move, ensuring they couldn't slip away. "Tomorrow," Sarah said as dawn broke, her voice calm yet resolute. "We end this. Are you ready?" I stood in front of the cracked motel mirror, staring at my reflection. The terrified, defeated woman from the anniversary party was gone. In her place stood someone unrecognizable, a woman who had found her strength, someone determined to fight back. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady. "It's time to take back what's mine." The morning of reckoning began with a single, simple text message. Sarah had set up a meeting for Eleanor and Ethan under the guise of finalizing the sale of the house. "They're here," Sarah texted. "Showtime." As I walked into the lawyer's office, I held my head high, knowing exactly what was about to unfold. The smug satisfaction on Eleanor and Ethan's faces quickly faded into shock as they saw me. Eleanor's carefully crafted smile slipped, replaced by a thinly veiled sneer. "Olivia, dear," she purred, trying to regain her composure. "Haven't you caused enough trouble?" Before she could continue, the door opened and Sarah entered, flanked by 2 FBI agents, my lawyer, and the other women Abigail, Beatrice, and Camille. Eleanor's face drained of color. Eleanor Winters, one of the agents said, his tone firm. We have some questions about a pattern of fraudulent activities across state lines. I don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, her voice betraying the fear creeping into her eyes. And then we laid it all out. The forged documents proven fake through footage of the Chicago presentation, the illegal bank transfers traced back through detailed records, the security footage of her trying to hack my work computer, Maria's recordings, each one damning. But it was the final blow, the other wives. One by one, they shared their stories, detailing the same pattern, the same cruel scheme, and the same humiliating public betrayal. Ethan's face turned ashen as each testimony was read aloud. His voice trembled. "Mom," he said, looking at Eleanor in shock. "What did you make me do?" "Oh, shut up, you weak fool!" Eleanor hissed, venom in her words. "You knew exactly what we were doing. You're as guilty as I am." That was it, the confession the FBI had been waiting for. "Eleanor Winters, Ethan Chin," the agent announced, his voice cold. "You are under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, theft, and conspiracy." Watching them being handcuffed just like I had been only days before felt almost surreal. Eleanor was still screaming, spitting threats as they led her away, while Ethan stood there completely broken, the weight of his actions sinking in. "The house sale has been stopped," Sarah said to me afterward, her voice calm but resolute. "And with their confession, we can start the process of recovering your assets." As I walked out of that office, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. The fight had been long, but it had been worth every step. I wasn't just walking away from a nightmare, I was walking into a future I was finally in control of. But it wasn't over yet. We had one more stop to make. Later that afternoon, I stood in front of a press conference. Cameras flashed as I told my story. Our story. I wanted other women to know they weren't alone, and that they could fight back. "To anyone who's been victimized like this," I said into the microphones, "don't stay silent. Don't let shame win. Your voice matters. Your truth matters." The story spread like wildfire. News channels, social media, everywhere people were talking about the Black Widow mother-in-law and her years of scams. More victims came forward, and with every new revelation, the FBI's case gained strength. And me? I reclaimed everything: my house, my money, my dignity. But what I gained beyond all of that was something even more powerful: my sense of self, my power. 6 months later, I stood in my garden planting vibrant roses where Eleanor's sterile, pretentious orchids used to sit. The house felt different now, lighter, cleaner, as if the oppressive weight of her presence had lifted with her absence. The trial had wrapped up just last week. Eleanor was sentenced to 15 years for organized fraud and conspiracy, while Ethan took a plea deal and received a 5-year sentence. More importantly, every single one of their victims had received justice. The FBI had tracked down and recovered most of the stolen assets from their offshore accounts. "You did it," Sarah said, handing me a coffee as I wiped dirt off my hands. Sarah had become much more than just the investigator who had helped me. She had become a true friend. "How does it feel?" I thought for a moment before answering, feeling the warmth of the coffee in my hands. "Like I can finally breathe again." My phone buzzed, another message from Abigail. Our support group for fraud victims was thriving, women helping women, sharing stories, finding strength in one another. Something beautiful had blossomed from all the pain, and that was the part that mattered most. "You know," I said, smiling as I looked around my garden, "Eleanor thought she was destroying me, but she actually set me free." The doorbell rang, signaling that my date had arrived. Yes, I was dating again, but this time it was different. No rush, no pressure, just an honest connection, with eyes wide open. "Going somewhere special?" Sarah asked, noticing my outfit. "Just dinner," I smiled back. "But this time, I'm choosing where we eat." As I grabbed my keys and headed toward the door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who had been handcuffed at her anniversary party. She was stronger, wiser, unafraid. Last week, I received a letter from Maria, our former housekeeper. She was in nursing school now, partly funded by the reward money from the FBI's case. "You showed me we all have the power to change things," she wrote. "That's the thing about hitting rock bottom. You learn who you are. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. And sometimes the worst day of your life turns out to be the beginning of your best life." My name is Olivia Chin. Yes, my first wedding anniversary ended in handcuffs, but that wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. Today, I'm not a victim. I'm not just a survivor. I'm a woman who fought back, and to any woman out there facing her own Eleanor, remember this. You are stronger than you know, your truth matters, and it's never too late to rewrite your ending. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even, it's getting better. What do you do when the people closest to you betray you in the most public, humiliating way possible? Olivia's first wedding anniversary ended in handcuffs, her mother-in-law's cruel scheme playing out before her eyes, with Ethan, her husband, standing by her side. What seemed like the happiest day of her life turned into a nightmare, but Olivia wasn't going to let Eleanor's deceit define her. She was about to reclaim her power, and the fight for her freedom was just beginning. After her humiliating arrest, Olivia took the first steps to reclaim her life. With the help of Sarah, a former detective turned private investigator, Olivia gathered evidence, documented everything, and found the courage to face her mother-in-law and husband head-on. As Sarah pulled together the pieces of Eleanor's past crimes, Olivia stood strong, determined to expose the truth. The moment Olivia walked into the lawyer's office, ready to confront Eleanor and Ethan, she was no longer the scared woman in handcuffs. She had become a force to be reckoned with. Eleanor's confession, along with the testimonies of her previous victims, sealed their fate. Olivia's bravery and determination turned the tables, and the truth came to light. But this wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. Olivia reclaimed everything she'd lost: her house, her money, and her dignity. But most importantly, she reclaimed herself. As she stood in her garden, surrounded by new roses and the beauty of her reclaimed life, she knew she had not just survived, but had risen stronger than ever before. To anyone facing their own Eleanor, Olivia's story is a reminder that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the most powerful transformations. What will you do when faced with your own betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more empowering stories.
Will you marry me? The words hung in our kitchen like a beautiful promise and a warning bell. Lucas knelt before me, holding up a ring that caught the afternoon light streaming through our window. My heart raced, but not entirely from joy. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, "Yes, of course I will." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and I watched it sparkle while my stomach twisted into knots. The diamond was perfect, too perfect. My mind flashed to all his stories about his family's pranks. About engagement rings that turned fingers green and wedding cakes that exploded in people's faces. "It's real," Lucas said, reading my expression. "I swear on my life, Isla. No tricks." I pulled him close, breathing in his familiar scent of coffee and cologne. "I believe you," I said, but my voice wavered. Behind us, small footsteps padded across the kitchen floor. "Are you going to be my real dad now?" Sophia asked, her 8-year-old face serious as she studied Lucas. He opened his arms and she ran into them. "If you'll have me, kiddo." I watched them embrace, fighting back tears. This was everything I'd wanted since my divorce 3 years ago: a real family, a fresh start. But Lucas's family loomed over us like storm clouds. "We need to tell your parents," I said, the words tasting bitter. Lucas's smile faltered. "They'll be thrilled. Mom's been asking about grandchildren since Nathan and Caroline's wedding." "That's not what I'm worried about." I touched the ring again, twisting it around my finger. "Your brother put live crickets in Caroline's wedding dress. He was younger then." "That was 2 years ago, Lucas." Sophia looked between us, her dark eyes worried. Is Uncle Nathan mean? No, sweetheart, Lucas said quickly. He just likes to play jokes. My whole family does. It's how we show love. I sent Sophia to finish her homework, waiting until she was out of earshot before continuing. Love shouldn't leave people crying in bathroom stalls or rushing to the emergency room with allergic reactions. They'll be different with you, Lucas insisted, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. They know how much you mean to me. Like they were different with Caroline? Or Amanda before her? Or Rachel? I counted his brothers pranking victims on my fingers. Your family drove away every girlfriend Nathan had until they found someone who'd put up with their traditions. Lucas ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd learned meant he was struggling. What do you want me to do? They're my family. I want you to stand up to them. To tell them that if they can't respect boundaries, they won't be welcome in our lives. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Lucas pulled out his phone. I'll call them now. We'll go over for dinner tonight, tell them about the engagement. Give them a chance to prove you wrong. My throat tightened. And if they don't? Then we'll deal with it together. He squeezed my hand, his thumb brushing over the ring. I choose you, Isla. You and Sophia. Always. I nodded, trying to believe him. But as he dialed his mother's number, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Bennetts had turned cruelty into an art form, disguising it as family tradition. And now I was about to become one of them. Mom? Lucas's voice brightened artificially. Great news. We're coming over for dinner tonight. There's something we need to tell you. I watched him talk, already planning how to protect myself, and more importantly, how to protect Sophia from whatever the Bennetts had in store for us. Because one thing was certain, they wouldn't change their ways without a fight. And I was ready to fight back. The engagement ring turned my finger green 3 days after the dinner at the Bennetts. I stared at the stain spreading across my skin like a bruise, remembering Evelyn's too bright smile as she hugged me. Welcome to the family, darling. Lucas found me scrubbing my hand raw in the bathroom sink. I'll kill them, he said, but his voice cracked. I'll call them right now. Don't bother. I wrapped a towel around my hand, hiding the evidence. Just tell me one thing, did you know? God, no. Isla, I swear. Because Nathan was filming the whole dinner on his phone. And your mother kept asking to see the ring up close. And your father. I swallowed hard. Your father said something about how some metals react differently to different people. Lucas slumped against the doorframe. They must have switched the rings when you went to help Mom in the kitchen. They violated our engagement, Lucas. The moment that was supposed to be just ours. My voice stayed steady, but inside, something hardened. And now we have to decide about the wedding. What do you mean? Whether we're inviting them at all. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Finally, Lucas straightened. They're my family. And what am I? You're everything. He reached for me, but I stepped back. But they'll never forgive me if I exclude them from my wedding. And I'll never forgive them if they ruin it. Sophia's voice drifted up from downstairs, singing along to some cartoon. The sound anchored me, reminded me what really mattered. Fine, I said. They can come. But we're setting conditions. Lucas nodded eagerly. Anything. First, Nathan surrenders his phone at the door. No cameras, no social media. Done. Second, your parents sign a contract. If they pull any pranks, any at all, they pay for the entire wedding. Lucas winced. They won't like that. That's the point. Hit them where it hurts, their wallet. I held up my stained hand. Unless you think this is funny? Of course not. He pulled me close, and this time I let him. I'll talk to them tomorrow. Make them understand this is different. But when Lucas returned from his parents' house the next day, his face told me everything. They signed, he said, dropping a piece of paper on our kitchen counter. But Mom said something about how Caroline didn't make these kinds of demands before her wedding. Caroline lets Nathan put worms in her coffee. She doesn't. Lucas stopped, seeing my expression. Okay, maybe once. But they promised to behave this time. Mom even cried when I showed her your hand. I picked up the contract, studying Evelyn and Richard's signatures. Crocodile tears. Can't you give them a chance? For me? Looking at him, at the hope in his eyes, the desperate need to believe his family could change, I felt my resolve soften. One chance, I said. But I'm not telling them about the backup plan. What backup plan? I smiled, thinking of the security team I'd already hired, the cameras I'd arranged to monitor the cake, the dress, everything. The less you know, the better. Just trust me. Lucas kissed my forehead. Always. That night, as I tucked Sophia into bed, she asked about her new grandparents. Are they going to come to the wedding? Yes, sweetheart. Even though they're mean sometimes? I smoothed her hair back, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes people do mean things because they think it's funny. But that doesn't make it okay. Like when Tommy put glue on Sarah's chair at school? Exactly like that. And what happened to Tommy? He got in trouble. And had to say sorry. That's right. I kissed her goodnight, then paused at the door. Sophia? If you ever see Grandma or Grandpa doing something that seems wrong, even if they say it's just a joke, you tell me right away. Okay? She nodded solemnly. I promise. Walking back downstairs, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back looked different somehow, harder, more determined. The Bennetts thought they were teaching me a lesson about their family traditions. Instead, they were about to learn one about consequences. Let them sign their contracts. Let them make their promises. I had plans of my own, and unlike theirs, mine wouldn't end in laughter. The wedding cake exploded in my face like a bomb of frosting and betrayal. One moment I was smiling, knife poised above the pristine white tears, Lucas's hands steady over mine. The next, I was wearing our $3,000 cake, chunks of it sliding down my dress while the Bennett family roared with laughter. Through the sugary haze, I saw Nathan's phone pointed at me, Caroline covering her mouth in mock horror. Evelyn clutched Richard's arm, tears of mirth streaming down her face. Oh, darling, she wheezed, you should see yourself. The ballroom fell silent except for their cackling. 200 guests watched, frozen, as I stood there dripping vanilla buttercream. Lucas's hand left mine. You promised, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You signed a contract. Oh, lighten up, Richard chuckled. It's tradition. Tradition? Lucas grabbed Nathan's phone, hurling it against the wall. It shattered like my trust in his family. You just cost yourselves $50,000. Evelyn's laughter died. Now, sweetheart. Don't. I finally found my voice, sharp as broken glass. Don't you dare try to explain this away. Sophia appeared at my side, her flower girl dress pristine compared to my ruined gown. She took my sticky hand. "Mama? It's okay, baby." I squeezed her fingers, anchoring myself. "Go with Aunt Ava for a minute." Lucas's aunt stepped forward, the only Bennett not laughing. She led Sophia away, shooting a disgusted look at her family. "Come on, Isla," Nathan called. "The video's going to get 1,000,000 views." Lucas lunged for his brother, but I caught his arm. "Don't. They're not worth it." "Listen to your wife," Richard said. "It's just a bit of fun." "Fun?" I turned to face them, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "You want to know what's fun? The restraining order I'm filing tomorrow. The lawsuit for breach of contract. The social media posts I'll make showing exactly what kind of family you are." "You wouldn't dare," Evelyn hissed, all pretense of humor gone. "Try me." I pulled Lucas toward the door. "We're leaving. Anyone who's not a Bennett is welcome to stay and enjoy the reception. The rest of you can go to hell." "Isla, wait," Caroline started forward, but Nathan yanked her back. "Let the princess go," he sneered. "She clearly can't take a joke." Lucas broke free of my grip then, his fist connecting with Nathan's jaw. The crack echoed through the ballroom, followed by gasps and screams. I didn't stay to watch the chaos unfold. In the bridal suite, I tried salvaging what I could of my dress. Lucas found me there, his knuckles bloody. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, reaching for me. I stepped back. "Don't. Just. Don't. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to choose." The words came out raw, honest. "Them or us." "Because I can't do this anymore, Lucas. I won't let Sophia grow up thinking this is normal." He sank into a chair, head in his hands. "They're my family. And we're not." "Of course you are. But cutting them off completely. They humiliated me on my wedding day. They filmed it. They laughed." My voice cracked. "And you still can't choose?" The silence stretched between us like years of future heartbreak. Finally, Lucas looked up, his eyes red. "I'll tell them we're done. No contact, no holidays, nothing. Don't make promises you can't keep." "I mean it this time." He stood, reaching for me again. This time, I let him pull me close. "We'll move if we have to. Change our numbers. Whatever it takes." I nodded against his chest, breathing in his cologne mixed with vanilla frosting. But even as he held me, even as he whispered promises and apologies, I felt something shift inside me. The woman who walked down the aisle today died in that ballroom, replaced by someone harder, someone who understood that sometimes love wasn't enough. Because Lucas might have chosen me today, but tomorrow would test that choice. And the day after. And every day until either his family broke him or he broke them. I just had to decide which outcome I was willing to wait for. The pregnancy test shook in my hands like a live wire. 2 pink lines, clear, unmistakable, terrifying. 3 months of marriage, 3 months of fragile peace with the Bennetts, and now this bomb waiting to explode. I buried the test at the bottom of the kitchen trash, beneath coffee grounds and yesterday's mail. Lucas couldn't know. Not yet. Not until I figured out how to protect this child from his family's idea of tradition. "Mama?" Sophia padded into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. "Are you sick again?" I forced a smile. "Just a little queasy, baby. Nothing to worry about." "Is that why you were crying in the bathroom?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Evelyn's name flashed on the screen, making my stomach lurch for entirely different reasons. I declined the call, but seconds later, a text appeared. Saw you at the pharmacy yesterday. Buying something special? Winking face. The winky face mocked me. I deleted the message, but the damage was done. They knew. Somehow, they always knew. Lucas came home that evening with takeout and a strange expression. Mom called. Of course she did. I pushed my untouched food around the plate. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? Isla. He reached across the table, but I pulled back. She says you're pregnant. Are you? The silence stretched between us like a tripwire. Finally, I nodded. His face lit up. That's amazing! We have to celebrate, tell everyone. No. The word came out sharp enough to make Sophia look up from her homework. We're not telling them anything. They're already planning a baby shower. Mom's thinking games, decorations. Pranks? My fork clattered against the plate. What will it be this time? Fake miscarriage announcements? Gender reveal powder that stains skin? Or maybe they'll just wait until the birth and switch our baby with a doll? That's not fair. They've been trying. 3 weeks ago, Nathan put laxatives in Caroline's coffee. She was sick for days. That was different. They were just. Just what, Lucas? Just having fun? Just keeping up tradition? I stood, my chair scraping back. I won't let them near this baby. I won't let them turn our child into another punchline. Sophia slipped away to her room, quiet as a shadow. She'd gotten good at disappearing when voices rose. Lucas ran his hands through his hair. What do you want me to do? They're excited about their first grandchild. Second, I corrected. Or did you forget about Caroline's miscarriage after Nathan's harmless birthday surprise? The color drained from his face. We never talked about that day, about Caroline's screams when the Jack-in-the-Box sprayed her with compressed air, about the bleeding that followed. That was an accident, he whispered. Everything's an accident with them. Everything's just a joke until someone gets hurt. I pressed a hand to my still flat stomach. But I won't let them hurt this baby. Even if that means leaving. Leaving? Lucas stood so quickly his chair toppled. You can't be serious. Try me. I met his gaze steadily. Choose, Lucas. Right now. Either we move somewhere they can't find us, or what? Or I'll leave anyway. With both my children. The threat hung between us like poison gas. Lucas stared at me, then at the doorway where Sophia had disappeared, then back at me. They're changing, he said weakly. No. They're just getting better at hiding it. I walked to the window, watching darkness settle over our neighborhood. I won't raise another child in fear of their next tradition. Behind me, Lucas's phone buzzed. Another text from Evelyn, probably more baby shower ideas, more promises of family togetherness. More lies. 1 week, I said, not turning around. That's how long you have to decide. After that, I'm done waiting. His footsteps crossed the kitchen, paused at the doorway. I love you, he said softly. I know. I watched his reflection in the window glass. But sometimes love isn't enough. After he left, I pulled out my phone and opened a new message to Aunt Ava. She'd helped Caroline once, tried to at least. Maybe she'd help me too. Need advice, I typed. About leaving. Her response came immediately, come over tomorrow. Don't tell anyone. I deleted the exchange, then went to check on Sophia. She was already asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit, a gift from the Bennets that I'd carefully checked for hidden cameras or pranks. Never again, I promised silently. Never again would my children have to check their toys for traps. The funeral home smelled of lilies and lies. I sat in the front row, my black dress stretched tight across my 7-month pregnant belly, while the Bennets turned my husband's death into their final joke. Remember when Lucas put salt in the sugar bowl? Nathan's voice cracked with laughter, not grief, as he delivered the eulogy. Mom was spitting out her coffee for days. Beside me, Sophia clutched my hand. 10 days since the accident, and she hadn't spoken a word. Not since the police came to our door. Not since I had to tell her daddy wasn't coming home. And at his wedding, Nathan continued, but Aunt Ava cut him off. That's enough, Nathan. Oh, come on. Even Isla has to admit the cake thing was classic Lucas. My chair scraped back before I realized I was standing. The room went silent except for Evelyn's poorly concealed giggles. She'd been drinking since breakfast, I'd smelled it on her breath when she'd hugged me, whispered, at least he went out with a bang. The crash had been head-on. Lucas died instantly. The other driver walked away. Classic Lucas? My voice carried across the chapel. My husband is dead. Your brother is dead. And you're turning his funeral into a comedy routine? Lighten up, Richard called from his seat. He would have wanted us to laugh. He wanted you to change. The words tasted like blood in my mouth. He wanted you to stop hurting people. To be better. But you couldn't even give him that. Caroline stood, reaching for me. Isla, you're upset. The baby. Don't. I jerked away. Don't pretend you care now. Where were you when Nathan put those firecrackers in Lucas's car last month? The ones that made him swerve into a lamppost? The color drained from Caroline's face. Nathan's laughter died. What? Aunt Ava's voice cut through the silence. What firecrackers? Just a little surprise, Nathan muttered. To celebrate the baby. Lucas thought it was funny. He could have died then. The words exploded from me. He almost did. But you just kept pushing, didn't you? Every prank, every surprise, pushing and pushing until. Now wait just a minute, Richard stood, face red. You can't possibly be suggesting. Your traditions killed my husband. Each word fell like a hammer. Your jokes, your pranks, your constant need to hurt people for fun, it all led to this. To him being distracted, paranoid, always looking over his shoulder for the next attack from his own family. Evelyn swayed to her feet. How dare you? We loved Lucas. You loved having a victim. I turned to the gathered mourners, to the faces I recognized from years of family gatherings. Did you know they put laxatives in Caroline's coffee when she was pregnant? That she lost the baby? Did you know they filled Lucas's car with fireworks last month? Did you laugh then? Are you laughing now? The silence was absolute. Even Nathan looked sick. Mama? Sophia's voice, barely a whisper, broke something inside me. Can we go home? I gathered her close, feeling my unborn child kick against her as we embraced. Yes, baby. We're leaving. I looked at the Bennets one last time. And we're never coming back. You can't keep us from our grandchildren, Evelyn called after us. We have rights. I turned at the door, one hand on my belly, the other holding Sophia. Try to come near us, and I'll show you what real revenge looks like. Because unlike you, I don't think causing pain is funny. Outside, Aunt Ava waited by her car. I'll drive you home. No. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling a cab. And then I'm calling my lawyer. Isla. They need to pay, Ava. Not just for Lucas. For everyone they've hurt. For every joke that left scars. I met her eyes. Will you help me? She glanced back at the chapel, where Nathan was now arguing with Richard, where Caroline sat crying. Where Evelyn knocked back another drink from her flask. Yes, she said finally. It's time someone stopped them. As we waited for the cab, I felt Lucas's absence like a physical wound. But beneath the grief, something else grew alongside our child, a determination that would reshape the Bennett family forever. They wanted to play games? Fine. But this time, I'd make the rules. 5 years passed like a held breath. Lucas Jr., we called him LJ, grew into his father's smile and my stubbornness. Sophia turned 13, all sharp edges and quiet strength. And the Bennetts? They waited, like vultures circling a wounded animal. The Christmas card arrived on a Tuesday. Sophia brought it in with the mail, her hands trembling. They want us to come for Christmas, Mom. I almost said no. Should have said no. But LJ looked up from his toys, eyes bright with curiosity about the family we never discussed, and something inside me cracked. Maybe it's time, Aunt Ava said over the phone that night. They've changed, Isla. The therapy, the medications. Evelyn's on anxiety meds. That doesn't erase what they did. No, but they're trying. Nathan hasn't pulled a prank in years. Caroline's pregnant again. My fingers found the scar on my palm, from the joke gift they'd sent after Lucas died, a music box that shattered when opened. One chance, I said finally. Christmas morning only. We leave at the first sign of trouble. The Bennett house looked smaller than I remembered. Sophia gripped my hand as we approached, LJ balanced on my hip. He looked so much like Lucas it hurt. Welcome home. Evelyn's smile seemed genuine, her hand steady as she reached for LJ. I stepped back. No touching without permission. That was the agreement. Richard appeared behind her, gray-haired and subdued. Of course. We understand. The morning started well enough. Normal presents, normal breakfast. Nathan and Caroline sat across from us, their own toddler throwing Cheerios. No exploding packages, no hidden cameras, no cruel surprises. Then LJ opened the last gift. The Jack-in-the-Box was identical to the one that had triggered Caroline's miscarriage years ago. Before I could stop him, LJ turned the crank. No! Caroline screamed, but it was too late. The clown burst forth, spraying something that smelled like rotten eggs. LJ fell backward, crying. Sophia knocked the toy away, but the damage was done. It was just meant to be funny, Nathan said quickly. A little stink bomb, that's all. Funny? I lifted LJ, checking him for injuries. You think traumatizing children is funny? Oh, lighten up, Evelyn snapped, mask finally slipping. This is why Lucas always defended us. He understood family traditions. Lucas is dead. The words echoed off expensive wallpaper. Dead because of your traditions, your pranks, your stupid need to hurt people for entertainment. Now wait just a minute, Richard started, but I was already moving. Sophia, get our coats. We're leaving. But the presents, LJ whimpered. Leave them. I turned to the Bennets, fury burning away 5 years of careful healing. You want gifts? Here's yours. I pulled out my phone, opened the video I'd been recording since we arrived. Every conversation. Every joke. Every admission of past pranks. All recorded. All about to go viral unless you agree to my terms. You wouldn't dare, Nathan growled. Try me. One post about Caroline's miscarriage, about Lucas's accident, about today. How long before your business partners see it? Your friends? Your church? Caroline touched her pregnant belly protectively. Isla, please. Sign over Lucas's trust fund to LJ. All of it. And sign a legal agreement never to contact us again. That's blackmail, Richard sputtered. No, that's consequences. Something you've avoided your whole lives. I headed for the door, children in tow. You have until New Year's to decide. You're just like us now, Evelyn called after me. Using pain for power. Lucas would be ashamed. I paused, remembering Lucas's last morning, how he'd kissed me goodbye, promised to talk to them one last time about changing. How he never came home. Maybe I am becoming like you, I said quietly. But at least I'm honest about my cruelty. Outside, snow fell like ash. Sophia helped LJ into the car while I stood watching the house where Lucas grew up, where he learned that love and pain were interchangeable. Mom? Sophia's voice was small. Are we really going to post that video? I looked at my children, Lucas's children, and felt the weight of choices stretching out before us. That depends on them. And on whether revenge tastes as sweet as they always claimed it did. The drive home was silent except for LJ's quiet sobs. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with messages from the Bennets, but I didn't check them. Let them worry. Let them fear. Let them finally understand how it feels to be on the other side of their games. Sometimes the only way to end a tradition is to break it completely. The video went viral faster than a California wildfire. 3 million views in 24 hours. Comment sections exploding with outrage. Local news stations calling. The Bennett family's carefully constructed facade crumbled with each share, each angry reaction, each exposed truth. I watched it burn from behind my screen, LJ asleep in my lap, while Sophia did homework at the kitchen table. Mom? She looked up from her textbook. Aunt Caroline's trying to video call. My finger hovered over the accept button. Caroline's face appeared, tear-streaked and hollow. They're destroying everything, she whispered. Nathan's business partners are pulling out. The church asked Mom and Dad to step down from the board. Everyone knows. That was the point. Please, take it down. We'll sign whatever you want. Too late. I shifted LJ gently. The truth doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to everyone you've ever hurt. The doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw them all, Evelyn, Richard, Nathan, even Aunt Ava. Standing in the snow like supplicants at a temple. Don't answer it, Caroline pleaded. Nathan's. He's not himself. I ended the call. Sophia, take LJ upstairs. Lock the door. Don't come down unless I call you. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. I opened it, keeping the security chain latched. Come to plant more bombs? Hide more cameras? We came to apologize, Evelyn said, but Nathan shoved past her. You vindictive bitch. His face was red, spittle flying. You've ruined us. No, you ruined yourselves. I just showed everyone the truth. The truth? He slammed his fist against the door. The truth is Lucas loved our traditions. He understood family. The truth is Lucas was terrified of you. The words exploded from me. He checked his car every morning for pranks. Tested his food before eating. Jumped at loud noises. You didn't love him, you tortured him. That's not Richard started, but Aunt Ava cut him off. Yes, it is. She stepped forward. We all saw it. We just pretended not to. Shut up, Ava, Evelyn snapped. You were always too soft. And you were always too cruel. Ava pulled out her phone. Which is why I saved every text, every email, every video of your pranks for the past 20 years. Including the ones about Lucas's accident. Nathan went pale. What are you talking about? The text you sent your mother the morning Lucas died. About the surprise you planned for his car. The one you deleted after you heard about the crash. The porch fell silent except for the wind. Even Nathan stopped breathing. I didn't. He whispered. I never meant. None of us meant it, Ava said quietly. But we let it happen. All of it. And now we pay the price. I looked at them, really looked. At Evelyn's trembling hands, Richard's stooped shoulders, Nathan's broken expression. At the family that had terrorized so many people in the name of tradition, now destroyed by their own legacy. The trust fund papers, I said finally. Do you have them? Richard pulled out an envelope. Signed and notarized. Everything goes to LJ. And the restraining order? That too. Evelyn's voice cracked. But please, let us at least send cards on their birthdays. No. I took the envelope. You don't get to hurt them anymore. Not ever again. Then why did you really post that video? Nathan asked. If not for negotiations? I thought of Lucas, of his last morning, of all the mornings he spent checking for traps and pranks. Of the fear that lived in him until the day he died. Because somewhere out there, another family thinks cruelty is funny. Another child is learning that love means pain. Maybe now they'll think twice. We could change, Evelyn whispered. Then change. But do it far away from us. I closed the door on their protests, their pleas, their too late apologies. Upstairs, I heard LJ laughing at something Sophia said, the sound pure and unburdened by fear. My phone buzzed with another news request, another chance to tell our story. But as I looked at the papers in my hands, justice served cold and clean, I realized I was done with the Bennett's story. It was time to write our own. The package arrived on Lucas's birthday. No return address, just a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside, I found an old leather journal and a letter from Aunt Ava. Found this while cleaning out the attic. It was Lucas's. You should have it. Sophia helped LJ with his homework while I sat at the kitchen table, running my fingers over the worn cover. The last page held an entry dated 3 days before the accident. Sometimes I wonder if they can change. If anyone can. Mom says pranks are how we show love, but all I see is fear. In Isla's eyes when she checks her food. In Caroline's when Nathan enters a room. In Sophia's when she visits her grandparents. I'm going to end it tomorrow. Tell them either they get help or they lose us. Maybe they'll finally understand that real love doesn't leave scars. My hands shook as I turned back through the pages, finding years of documented pranks, accidents, near misses. Lucas had been building a case, gathering evidence, preparing to do exactly what I'd done with that viral video. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Caroline standing on the porch, heavily pregnant, holding something. 5 minutes, I said through the door. That's all you get. She held out a tablet. Nathan's in therapy. Real therapy, not just the court-ordered kind. He wanted you to see this. The video showed Nathan in a sterile office, tears streaming down his face. I killed my brother, he said to someone off-screen. Not directly, but I killed him all the same. With every prank, every scare, every time I made him feel unsafe in his own life. And I can't take it back. I can't fix it. But I can change. I have to change. Why show me this? Caroline touched her belly. Because I'm having a girl. And I need to know if there's ever a chance. If we prove we're different. That's not my decision anymore. I handed back the tablet. It's theirs. I gestured to where Sophia and LJ watched from the window. They'd grown so much, Sophia nearly as tall as me now, LJ with Lucas's quiet strength in his eyes. But if you want a chance, I added, start with the truth. Show them the journal. Let them see who their father really was, and what he died trying to change. And Mom and Dad? They made their choices. Every day, for years, they chose cruelty over kindness. Now they live with those choices. Caroline nodded, then pulled out one last item, a sealed envelope. Lucas wrote this the week before. Before everything. Made me promise to give it to you if anything ever happened to him. I was too ashamed until now. Inside, I found a single page. My love. If you're reading this, I failed. Failed to protect you from my family, failed to change them, maybe failed to come home to you. But please know this, you showed me what real love looks like. Not the twisted version I grew up with, but something pure and strong and kind. Whatever happens, don't let them dim that light in you. Don't let revenge poison what makes you beautiful. Show our children that breaking cycles takes more courage than continuing them. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't fix this. L. Caroline left quietly while I read. When I looked up, Sophia and LJ stood beside me. Can we read it? Sophia asked. Yes. I handed them the letter, watching their faces as they absorbed their father's last words. Dad was brave, LJ said finally. Yes, he was. I pulled them close, breathing in the scent of homework and hope and healing. And so are we. Later, I added my own entry to Lucas's journal. You didn't fail, my love. You planted the seeds of change. And though you didn't live to see it bloom, our children will grow up knowing that real love leaves no scars, only wings. The cycle ends with us. I closed the journal, leaving space for whatever stories our future might hold. Some pages, after all, are better left blank than filled with false laughter and hidden pain. Outside, spring rain washed away the last traces of winter, and somewhere, a family tradition died so that something better could grow in its place.
The letter trembled in my hands, its crisp edges cutting into my fingers like tiny blades of betrayal. My father's precise handwriting, always so controlled and measured, spelled out Samantha's future as if he were drafting just another business contract. I'm Michelle, and this moment marked the end of playing the dutiful daughter. A strategic merger through marriage, he wrote. The Wilson boy will secure our position in the market. No mention of love. No consideration for Samantha's happiness. Just cold, calculated business moves using my sister as currency. The study felt smaller suddenly, its mahogany panels closing in. Father's leather chair sat empty behind his massive desk, but I could feel his presence, that suffocating authority that had shaped our entire lives. The afternoon sun caught the family portrait on the wall, all of us wearing practiced smiles, Mother's hand resting too stiffly on Father's shoulder. My phone buzzed. A text from Samantha. Meeting Jason for coffee. Don't tell Dad. My fingers clenched around the letter. Jason, the man she actually loved. The one Father deemed unsuitable, because he chose teaching over corporate climbing. I took a photo of the letter before carefully returning it to Father's desk drawer. Everything all right in there, Michelle? Mother's voice drifted in from the hallway, soft and uncertain as always. Just dropping off those contracts Father asked for. The lie came easily. Years of practice. I found Mother in the kitchen, mechanically arranging flowers in a crystal vase. Her movements were precise, just as Father had taught her. Everything in its proper place. Those roses need more water, I said, watching her reaction. She adjusted the water level without looking up. Your father likes them exactly like this. And what do you like, Mother? Her hand stilled for just a moment. Don't start, Michelle. Please. My phone buzzed again. Samantha. He's going to propose soon. I can feel it. The weight of what I'd discovered pressed against my chest. I needed to warn her, but not here. Not with Mother's worried eyes tracking my movements. I'm heading out, I announced. Meeting Michael for dinner. Your father won't be pleased. He wanted to discuss the quarterly reports with you tonight. The reports can wait. Mother's fingers worried at her pearl necklace. Father's first anniversary gift to her. Michelle, please. You know how he gets when things aren't exactly as he wants them. Yes, Mother. I know exactly how he gets. I left before she could respond, the letter's contents burning in my mind. In the driveway, I texted Samantha. Need to see you. Emergency. Meet at our spot in an hour. The response came quickly. Can't. With Jason's smiley face. Sam. This is serious. It's about Dad. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Okay. 1 hour. I started my car, catching a glimpse of Mother through the kitchen window. Still arranging those roses, still trying to make everything perfect. Behind her, Father's study loomed dark and imposing. My phone lit up with another text, this time from Michael. Everything set for tomorrow's meeting? I hadn't told him about the letter yet. Hadn't told him how Father's latest power play threatened to destroy not just Samantha's happiness, but the fragile peace we'd maintained in this family for years. Change of plans, I typed back. We need to talk strategy. Because that's what Father had taught us, wasn't it? Everything was strategy. Every relationship a potential alliance or liability. Every emotion a weakness to be controlled. Well, Father, I thought as I pulled out of the driveway, 2 can play at that game. You taught us well, perhaps too well. The sun was setting behind the Thompson Industries building downtown, its glass windows reflecting orange fire. Somewhere in there, Father was probably already setting his plan in motion. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. And I'd burn his whole empire down before I let him do to Samantha what he'd done to Mother. Meeting Samantha at our childhood hideout, the old gazebo behind Aunt Linda's house, felt like stepping into a time capsule. The peeling white paint and creaking floorboards hadn't changed, but everything else had. You're being dramatic, Samantha said, scrolling through her phone. Dad's always making deals. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photo of the letter. Read it. Her eyes widened as she scanned the words, color draining from her face. The Wilson boy? You mean Derek Wilson? That entitled jackass from high school. Apparently, his father's company is Father's ticket to salvation. I watched her hand start to shake. He's already arranged the first dinner meeting. I won't do it. She stood up, pacing the small space. He can't make me. I love Jason. Father doesn't care about love. He cares about power. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. And right now, he's losing it. Samantha stopped pacing. What do you mean? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the gazebo. We both froze, but it was just Michael pulling up in his sedan. He joined us, bringing the smell of coffee and city with him. "Your father's looking for you both," he said, handing me a cup. "There's some kind of emergency board meeting tomorrow morning." Emergency? Samantha's voice cracked. "Did he say what about?" Michael shook his head. "But I overheard Marcus from accounting talking about major discrepancies in the quarterly reports." I remembered Mother's words about Father wanting to discuss those reports tonight. The pieces were starting to fit together. "We need to move fast," I said. "Sam, you need to tell Jason everything." "Tell me what?" We all spun around. Jason stood at the gazebo steps, his teacher's messenger bag slung across his chest. Samantha rushed to him, but stopped short of embracing him. "I thought you were grading papers tonight," she said. "I was. Then your father called the school, asking if I'd seen you." Jason's eyes moved between us. "What's going on?" The silence stretched thin. Finally, Samantha took his hand. "We need to talk." They walked to the far end of Aunt Linda's garden, leaving Michael and me in the gazebo. Through the lattice, I could see Samantha gesturing, Jason's posture growing more rigid with each passing moment. "Your father's going to notice you missed dinner," Michael said quietly. "Let him notice." I gripped the railing. "I'm done playing his games." "Michelle." Michael's hand covered mine. "If what I heard at the office is true, your father's not just playing games anymore. He's desperate." "Good." The word came out sharp as glass. "Maybe now he'll know how it feels to lose control." A cry from the garden made us both turn. Jason had backed away from Samantha, shaking his head. Even in the dim light, I could see the devastation on my sister's face. "I should go to her," I said, but Michael held me back. "Wait. Let them figure it out." We watched as Jason paced, ran his hands through his hair, then finally pulled Samantha into a fierce embrace. When they returned to the gazebo, their faces were set with determination. "We're leaving," Jason announced. "Tonight." "No," I said immediately. "That's exactly what Father expects. He's probably watching both of you already." "Then what do we do?" Samantha's voice was small, like when we were children hiding from Father's rages. My phone buzzed, a text from Mother. "Your father knows about the letter. Come home now." The others read the message over my shoulder. Samantha grabbed my arm. "Michelle, I'm sorry. I never meant to." "Listen to me." I cut her off. "All of you. We're going to give Father exactly what he wants." "What?" Samantha stared at me. "But you just said." "We're going to play his game," I continued, a plan forming. "But we're going to play it better than he ever could." Michael squeezed my hand, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The board meeting tomorrow." I nodded. "Father's not the only one who knows how to arrange a marriage of convenience." In the distance, thunder rolled across the sky. A storm was coming in more ways than one. And this time I was ready for it. The boardroom felt like a tomb, all polished mahogany and stale air. I sat at my usual place, 3 seats down from Father, watching him shuffle papers with trembling hands. He'd aged 10 years overnight, but his eyes still burned with that familiar, dangerous intensity. "The Wilson merger is our only option," he announced to the board. "Their capital injection will stabilize." "Stabilize what exactly?" I interrupted, sliding the financial reports across the table. "The $8 million deficit you've been hiding?" The room went deadly quiet. Father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Where did you get those?" "From the same drawer where you keep your plans to sell my sister's future." Board members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Someone coughed. Father's fingers curled around his pen until his knuckles went white. "Michelle," he said, voice dangerously soft, "step outside with me." "No." I stood, addressing the board. "You all deserve to know what's really happening. Our CEO has been cooking the books for months, possibly years." "That's enough." Father slammed his fist on the table. "This is a family matter." "Everything's a family matter with you, isn't it?" I pulled out my phone, displaying more documents. "Including the offshore accounts? The shell companies?" A gasp from the doorway made us all turn. Mother stood there, clutching her signature pearl necklace, Aunt Linda right behind her with a hand on her shoulder. "John," Mother whispered, "what have you done?" Father's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something I'd never seen before: fear. "Rebecca, go home," he ordered. "This doesn't concern you." "Like hell it doesn't." Aunt Linda stepped forward. "It's time, John. We all know." "Know what?" I looked between them, sensing years of unspoken history crackling in the air. Mother reached into her handbag and pulled out a weathered journal. My heart stopped when I recognized her maiden name embossed on the cover. "I should have shown you girls this years ago," she said, voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "About how your father really started this company." Father lunged for the journal, but Aunt Linda was faster. She snatched it and tossed it to me. As I caught it, Father's phone buzzed. His face went ashen as he read the message. "The Wilson deal," he muttered. "They're pulling out." "Of course they are," I said, flipping through Mother's journal. "I met with Derek Wilson last night. Showed him everything." "You stupid girl," Father snarled. "You've destroyed us all." "No, Father. You did that yourself." I turned to the board. "There's more. Much more. And I'll reveal everything unless you agree to my terms." "Terms?" He barked out a laugh. "You're in no position. Samantha marries who she chooses," I cut in. "Mother gets controlling interest in the company. And you step down. Today." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Members shouting, papers flying, Father's face contorting with rage. But through it all I watched Mother. She stood straighter, taller, as if shedding decades of careful submission. "There's something else you should know," Aunt Linda said quietly, just to me. "About your grandfather's death." My blood ran cold. Father's head snapped up, real panic flashing across his face. "Linda, don't. The statute of limitations expired last year, John," she continued, steel in her voice. "Nothing's stopping me from telling the truth now." I opened Mother's journal to the last entry, dated the day before my grandfather died. The words blurred before my eyes as the final piece of our family's twisted puzzle clicked into place. "You're not just a bully," I said to Father, my voice shaking. "You're a murderer." Mother's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. 28 years of questions suddenly had answers, and they were darker than I'd ever imagined. "Michelle," Father said, almost pleading now, "everything I did was for this family." "No," I replied, standing up straighter. "Everything you did was for yourself. And now you're going to pay for it." The board members watched in stunned silence as I pulled out one final document, the one Michael had helped me prepare all night. My hands didn't shake as I placed it in front of Father. "Sign it," I said, "or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you really are." The pen hovered over the paper as thunder cracked outside, nature itself holding its breath for his next move. The signed resignation papers felt heavy in my bag as I drove to Samantha's apartment. Victory should have tasted sweeter, but Father's last words in the boardroom haunted me. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started." I found Samantha's door unlocked. Inside, clothes were strewn everywhere, drawers left open, her laptop screen cracked on the floor. "Sam!" My voice echoed through the empty rooms. "Samantha!" A note lay on her bed, Jason's familiar handwriting shaky and rushed. "They know. Had to run. Don't try to find us." "I'm sorry." My phone buzzed, Michael. "Turn on the news. Now." The TV flickered to life, showing Father at a press conference outside Thompson Industries. He looked composed, almost triumphant. "Regret to announce that my daughter Michelle's accusations are the desperate actions of a troubled young woman. Her sister Samantha's disappearance with company funds proves." The remote slipped from my hand. Company funds? What was he talking about? Another buzz, an unknown number. "Your sister's safe. Meet at Linda's. Come alone." Mother appeared in Samantha's doorway, her face drawn. "I tried to warn you. Your father, he always has contingencies." "What did you know?" I turned to her. "About the money? Not here." She glanced around nervously. "The walls have ears." We drove to Aunt Linda's in silence. The old house looked different now, shadows stretching across the overgrown garden like grasping fingers. Linda met us at the door, ushering us quickly inside. Samantha sat at the kitchen table, Jason's arm around her shoulders. Her eyes were red, but her chin was set in that stubborn way we'd inherited from Father. "He planted evidence," she said before I could speak. Made it look like Jason and I embezzled millions. There's security footage, Dr. bank statements, everything. It gets worse, Linda added, sliding a folder across the table. These arrived an hour ago. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Me meeting Derek Wilson. Michael accessing restricted files. Mother with her journal. All of us at the gazebo. Each one carefully dated and time-stamped. He knew, I whispered. He knew everything. Not everything. Mother's voice had changed, harder somehow. She pulled out her phone, showing us an email. Your father didn't just kill your grandfather. He made a deal with the Wilsons to cover it up. That's how he got control of the company. And now history's repeating itself, Linda said. The Wilsons never pulled out of the merger. This was all part of their plan. Jason squeezed Samantha's shoulder. We found offshore accounts in my name. If we don't disappear now. No. I cut him off. That's exactly what father wants. To split us up, make us run, prove we're guilty. Then what do we do? Samantha asked, voice cracking. My phone buzzed again. Father. The board meets again tomorrow. Your choice. Come alone and recant everything, or watch your sister go to prison. You have until midnight. I looked around the kitchen, at Mother's newfound strength, at Linda's quiet determination, at Samantha and Jason's intertwined hands. Everything I'd done to protect them had somehow made things worse. We stop playing his game, I said finally, and we start playing mine. Michelle, Mother warned, you don't know what he's capable of. No. I pulled out my own phone, scrolling to a number I'd hoped never to use. But I know what I'm capable of. The call connected on the first ring. A familiar voice answered, Derek Wilson's father. Miss Thompson. I was wondering when you'd call. I have a proposition for you, I said, watching my family's faces. About your son's real connection to my grandfather's death. Silence crackled over the line. Then, I'm listening. Sometimes to destroy a monster you have to become one. Father had taught me that lesson well. Now it was time to show him just how well I'd learned it. Meet me in an hour, I said. And bring every skeleton in your closet. The private room at St. Michelle's restaurant felt like a war room. Richard Wilson sat across from me, his silver hair catching the candlelight, while Michael stood guard by the door. Between us lay 2 manila envelopes, mine and his. Your father always said you were the smart one, Wilson mused, swirling his whiskey. Though he meant it as a criticism. Let's skip the small talk. I pushed my envelope forward. Everything about my grandfather's death. Security footage, witness statements, financial transfers. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Impressive. But what makes you think I won't just destroy it all? Because I've already sent copies to every major news outlet. Time-delayed emails. If anything happens to me or my family. He opened his envelope, spreading photos across the table. Then you should know what these are. My heart stopped. The images showed Samantha and Jason at various ATMs, withdrawing massive sums. All dated months ago. That's impossible, I whispered. They were doctored. Were they? Wilson leaned forward. Your father didn't create these, Michelle. Your sister did. My phone buzzed. A text from Samantha. I'm sorry. I had to tell you in person. Coming to St. Michelle's now. You see, Wilson continued, young love is expensive, especially when one partner has gambling debts. The room tilted sideways. Jason's gambling debts? I looked at Michael, saw the guilt in his eyes. You knew. I tried to help them hide it, Michael admitted. To protect you. The restaurant door opened. Samantha stood there, tears streaming down her face. Michelle, please. Don't. I held up my hand, pieces clicking into place. The embezzlement charges. They weren't fake, were they? Jason promised he'd pay it back, she sobbed. But then father found out and offered me a deal, Wilson finished. The merger in exchange for burying the evidence. Your father may be a bastard, but he'd do anything to protect his children. Laughter bubbled up in my throat, harsh, bitter laughter. Protect us? By selling us off like property. By saving us from prison, Samantha whispered. My phone buzzed again. Father. Now you understand. Come home. We can fix this. The board meets in an hour, Wilson said, standing. Your choice, Michelle. Save your sister or destroy your father. You can't do both. I stared at the evidence spread before me. Proof of father's murders tangled with proof of my sister's crimes. Everything I'd fought for built on lies. Michelle. Michael touched my shoulder. We need to decide. No. I shrugged him off, facing Samantha. You decide. Right now. The truth, all of it. She sank into a chair, hands shaking. Jason's in trouble. Deep trouble. The kind that gets people killed. Father found out, offered to help, but only if. Only if you married Derek Wilson. The pieces kept falling. A twisted mosaic of manipulation. And I played right into it. I never meant. To what? To let me destroy our family trying to save you? To watch me become exactly what father always said I was. Cold, calculating, willing to burn everything down. Wilson cleared his throat. The board meeting. Will proceed exactly as planned. I gathered both envelopes, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But with one change. I pulled out my phone, dialing a number I'd memorized years ago. It rang twice. Federal Bureau of Investigation, White Collar Division. The room went deadly silent. Samantha's face drained of color. Wilson reached for the envelopes, but Michael blocked his path. This is Michelle Thompson. I'd like to report multiple cases of fraud, embezzlement, and murder. I met Wilson's eyes, then Samantha's. And I'm ready to testify. Michelle, please, Samantha begged. You'll destroy everything. No, I replied, watching father's name flash on my phone with another incoming call. I'm just finally telling the truth. All of it. Sometimes the only way to end a game is to flip the board entirely. Father had taught me that too, though I doubt this was what he had in mind. Send agents to Thompson Industries. I continued into the phone. The board meeting starts in 45 minutes. And trust me, no one's going anywhere. The Thompson Industries boardroom had become a battlefield. FBI agents lined the walls while father sat at the head of the table, somehow looking both defeated and dangerous. Like a cornered wolf. Miss Thompson, Agent Carter said. Please continue. I stood before the board, my testimony echoing in my ears. The evidence spread across the table told a story of decades of corruption, murder, and lies. Father's lies. Samantha's lies. My own. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out Mother's journal. About the night my grandfather died. Father's hand twitched toward his pocket. I caught the movement, remembered all the times that subtle gesture had silenced us as children. Not anymore. Michelle. His voice carried that familiar warning tone. Think carefully about what you're doing. The boardroom door burst open. Mother rushed in, followed by Aunt Linda. Stop. There's something you don't know. Mrs. Thompson, Agent Carter started, but Mother cut him off. I killed him. The words fell like bombs in the silent room. I killed your grandfather. The journal slipped from my fingers. What? He was going to sell the company, Mother continued, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Leave us with nothing. Your father covered it up to protect me. Father stood slowly. Rebecca, don't. No more lies, John. She turned to me, tears streaming. Everything he did, the merger, protecting Samantha, all of it, was because I made him promise to keep our family safe. To keep my secret. The room spun. I gripped the table for support, feeling the carefully constructed narrative of my revenge crumbling. The offshore accounts, Samantha said from the doorway. They weren't just for Jason's debts, were they? They were insurance. For Mother. For all of us, Father replied quietly. Family protects family, even from themselves. Agent Carter stepped forward. Mrs. Thompson, you understand you're confessing to murder? I understand I'm finally telling the truth. Mother reached for the journal. It's all in here. Every detail. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Jason's dead. Car accident. Samantha needs you. The words blurred before my eyes. I looked at my sister, saw the moment she received the same news. Her knees buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. You knew, I whispered to Father, about Jason's gambling debts. The people he owed money to. I tried to save him, Father said. The merger would have cleared his debts, given them both a fresh start. His eyes met mine. You were right about one thing, Michelle. I am a monster. But everything I did was to protect us from worse monsters. Samantha's sobs echoed through the room. Mother moved to comfort her, but the FBI agents blocked her path. Rebecca Thompson, you're under arrest. No. I stepped forward. You can't. It's okay, sweetheart. Mother smiled that same sad smile she'd worn my entire childhood. Sometimes the only way to end a nightmare is to wake up. As they led her away, Father sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. You wanted the truth, Michelle. Now you have it. Was it worth it? I watched my family crumbling around me. Mother in handcuffs, Samantha broken on the floor, Father defeated in his empire of lies. All because I'd been so certain of my own righteousness. The board will need to vote on interim leadership, someone was saying. Given the circumstances. The circumstances, Father interrupted, are that my daughter finally proved herself worthy of the Thompson name. She did exactly what I taught her to do. He looked at me with something like pride. She destroyed her enemies, even if they were her own family. The words hit like physical blows. Because he was right. In trying to break free from his control, I'd become exactly what he'd always wanted me to be. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Linda. There's still a way to fix this. But you'll have to trust me. I looked around the boardroom one last time. At the ruins of my revenge, at the price of truth, at the family I'd tried to save and destroyed instead. Okay. I texted back. Whatever it takes. Sometimes the only way forward is through the darkness. Even if you're the one who created it. Aunt Linda's plan was elegant in its simplicity, almost beautiful like a perfectly executed chess move. And just as deadly. I found Father in his study at midnight, exactly where Linda said he'd be. The scotch bottle on his desk was half empty, Mother's journal open beside it. Come to finish what you started? He didn't look up. Jason's death wasn't an accident. I placed Linda's USB drive on his desk. But you already knew that. Now he looked up, eyes sharp despite the alcohol. What exactly are you implying? The Wilson family doesn't just own companies, do they? They own people, debts, lives. I turned his computer monitor toward me, plugging in the drive, including the lives of inconvenient teachers who get too close to their interests. Files populated the screen, decades of transactions, blackmail, bodies. Father's hand twitched toward his desk drawer. The gun's not there, I said quietly. Michael took it this morning. Linda. He almost smiled. She always was too clever for her own good. She was clever enough to keep records. Of everything. Including what really happened the night grandfather died. The study door opened. Mother stood there, flanked by FBI agents. Not in handcuffs anymore. Your confession was very convincing, Rebecca, Father said, voice hollow. I almost believed it myself. I learned from the best, John. Mother stepped into the room. How to lie. How to sacrifice. How to protect our family. And now. He gestured at the agents. This is protection. This is freedom. I pulled up one final document. The Wilson family's real financial records. Everything they've hidden. Everyone they've hurt. Including Jason. Father's face went slack. If you expose this, the merger dies. The company falls. Everything you built crumbles. I met his eyes. Unless. Sign over control to Mother. Take the fall for grandfather's death. The real story this time. Give Samantha the trust fund you've been holding hostage. He laughed, harsh and broken. Or what? Prison? Disgrace? I taught you better than empty threats, Michelle. No threats. I turned the monitor to show one last file. Just a choice. The same choice you gave us our entire lives. Family or power. The timestamp on the security footage showed last week. Father in this very study making a phone call. Jason's accident happened 20 minutes later. You were right, I continued. I am your daughter. I learned how to destroy my enemies. But I also learned when to show mercy. Mercy. He spat the word. You call this mercy? The FBI has enough to arrest both you and the Wilsons. But only one family has to fall tonight. I slid the confession papers across his desk. Your choice, father. But choose quickly. Agent Carter is very eager to make his arrest. Mother stepped forward, placing her hand over his. John, please, let it end. The clock ticked. Father stared at the papers, then at me. I saw the exact moment his armor cracked, when he realized he'd created something he couldn't control. You really would destroy everything, he whispered. Just like I taught you. No. I pushed the pen closer. I'm saving what matters. Just like Mother taught me. His hand shook as he reached for the pen. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, painting his empire in shades of gold and shadow. The board meeting is in 3 hours, I said. Time to wake up from the nightmare, father. He signed. Agent Carter stepped forward with handcuffs, but I held up my hand. Give us a moment. When they left, father stood slowly, straightening his tie one last time. Was any of it real? Your revenge? Your righteousness? Was any of your love real? He touched Mother's journal, then looked at me with something like respect. You're better at this game than I ever was. It's not a game anymore. I gathered the evidence, leaving only the signed confession. It's justice. Justice, he echoed, offering his wrists to the returning agents. Is that what we're calling vengeance these days? I watched them lead him away, this man who'd shaped my life with fear and control, now broken by the very weapons he'd given me. Goodbye, father. Sometimes mercy is the cruelest revenge of all. The old gazebo creaked under our weight as Samantha and I sat in the growing darkness. Between us lay Mother's journal, its pages now holding more truth than either of us had been prepared for. Did you read all of it? Samantha traced the worn cover. Enough. I watched the lights of police cars flash in front of our childhood home. She knew about Jason's troubles. Tried to warn father, but he was already too deep with the Wilsons. And Aunt Linda? Had been gathering evidence since grandfather died, waiting for the right moment. I pulled out the last piece of paper we'd found hidden in the journal's binding. Or the right person. The letter was dated 20 years ago, written in Linda's careful hand. To whichever daughter finds her voice first. Samantha's fingers trembled as she read it. She knew we'd fight back someday. She knew we'd have to. Inside the house, Mother was speaking with federal agents, her voice carrying that new strength we were still getting used to. Michael stood guard by the door, giving us the space we needed for this final conversation. I keep thinking about what Father said, Samantha whispered. About protecting us from worse monsters. Maybe he did. I watched another police car arrive. But he became a monster himself in the process. And what about us? She turned to me, eyes bright with unshed tears. What did we become? The question hung between us, heavy as inheritance. Before I could answer, Aunt Linda appeared at the garden path. They found the Wilson family's records, she said. All of them. The FBI's moving on their entire operation tonight. And Jason's death? Will be properly investigated now. Linda sat between us, taking our hands. Your father's confession changes everything. A commotion from the house drew our attention. They were leading father out in handcuffs. He walked with his head high, but something had changed in his posture, like a puppet with cut strings. He paused at the police car, looking toward the gazebo. For a moment, I saw him as he must have been before. A young man trying to protect his family, making one compromise after another until compromise became corruption. The board meeting's been postponed, Linda continued. But they'll need an answer about leadership soon. Mother will handle it, I said. She always was better at business than father admitted. And you? I stood feeling the weight of the past few weeks, of all the choices that had led us here. I think I'm done with empire building. Michelle. Samantha grabbed my hand. We're still family, right? After everything. The police cars pulled away, their lights painting the garden in red and blue shadows. Father disappeared into the night, taking with him decades of secrets and control. Family protects family, I said. But maybe it's time we learned a different way to do it. Mother joined us, carrying a box of old photographs. Without speaking, we began sorting through them. Birthday parties, holidays, moments of joy caught between the darkness. I found this, Mother said, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. My childhood handwriting spelled out a simple promise, To protect Samantha always. You did, Samantha said softly. Protect me. Just not the way any of us expected. I thought about Father's last words to me. You're better at this game than I ever was. But looking at my family now, broken but healing, wounded but free, I realized he'd missed the point entirely. It was never about being better at the game. It was about having the courage to stop playing. Linda squeezed my shoulder. The company's lawyers will need your statement tomorrow. Tomorrow, I agreed, but made no move to leave the gazebo. For now, this moment was enough. The night air, the creaking wood, the sound of my family breathing freely for the first time in decades. Sometimes victory looks nothing like you imagined. Sometimes it's just the quiet after the storm. When you realize the person you fought hardest to become isn't the person you needed to be at all. I looked at the stars emerging above us, bright and clear and honest. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but tonight, in this space between what was and what could be, we were simply ourselves, no games, no masks, no empire to protect. Just family. Finally learning how to truly protect each other.
The package sits on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Brown paper, precise folds, my parents' return address scrawled in my father's unmistakable architect's handwriting. 5 years of silence, and now this. I'm Abigail, and I've spent a decade building a life that doesn't include them. A life where success is measured by my terms, not theirs. Where Christmas doesn't mean watching my brother Nathan unwrap everything I ever wanted while I got practical gifts like savings bonds and lecture notes about fiscal responsibility. You should open it, James says, reaching for his coffee mug. My husband, always the voice of reason. Always trying to bridge gaps I'd rather leave as chasms. I should burn it. My fingers trace the edge of the package. Better yet, return to sender. Let them taste what that feels like. Abby, don't Abby me. You weren't there when they emptied my college fund for Nathan's startup. When Mother said it was for the best, because I was the responsible one who could handle student loans. The package weighs nothing and everything. I tear into it, spite driving my movements. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, lies my grandmother's silver locket, the one Mother promised me on my 16th birthday. The one that mysteriously disappeared when Nathan's wife admired it at their wedding. A note falls out. Father's handwriting again. We need your help. Please. My laugh sounds foreign even to me. Of course. Of course they need help. That's the only reason they'd remember I exist. James sets down his mug. Maybe they're trying to make amends. With grandmother's locket? The one they gave to Nathan's wife. I snap the locket open. Inside, the tiny photos are still there. Grandmother as a young woman. Grandfather in his army uniform. This isn't about making amends. This is about wanting something. My phone buzzes. Aunt Martha's name lights up the screen. She's always had impeccable timing. Did you receive it? She asks without preamble. The guilt package? Just opened it. Your father's company is failing. They're facing bankruptcy. The pieces click into place. Let me guess, Nathan won't help? Nathan hasn't spoken to them in 2 years. Not since Jessica left him. I sink into a kitchen chair, turning the locket over in my hands. Good for him. He finally grew a spine. Abigail. Martha's voice softens. They're selling the house. The house. My childhood prison, Nathan's kingdom. Where Mother hosted charity galas while I wore secondhand clothes. Where Father built Nathan a gaming room while I studied by flashlight because my desk lamp was wasteful electricity. And I keep my voice steady. They made their choices. They're asking for your business expertise. Your father mentioned your success in corporate restructuring. I close my eyes, seeing the irony. The daughter they deemed unworthy of investment, now successful enough to save them. Did they tell you about the locket? Martha's silence speaks volumes. They gave it to Jessica. Nathan's ex-wife has been trying to sell it. That's the only reason they retrieved it. They need me. So they're trying to buy me with my own inheritance. People can change, Abigail. Yes, they can. I did. I studied the locket one last time before setting it down. I changed into someone who doesn't need their approval anymore. James watches me, concern etched on his face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time they learned about consequences. I stand up, decision made. I'm going to help them, Aunt Martha. I'm going to help them understand exactly what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. The line goes quiet. Finally, Martha sighs. Just remember, revenge might make you feel better, but it won't heal what's broken. I'm not looking to heal anything. I hang up, my mind already racing with possibilities. I'm looking for justice. James reaches for my hand, but I'm already moving, pulling out my laptop. Abby, wait. No more waiting. I open my email. They wanted my expertise? They're going to get it. Every brutal, honest bit of it. The locket gleams in the morning light, a promise of reckoning. Standing at the end of Maple Drive, I barely recognize my childhood home. The pristine white colonial that once hosted my mother's garden parties now slouches behind overgrown hedges, its paint peeling like dead skin. You don't have to do this, James says from the car. Actually, I do. I adjust my blazer, armor against memories. If I'm going to destroy something, I need to see what I'm destroying. The front gate squeaks. Same sound, different decade. I was 17 the last time I walked this path, carrying a duffel bag and college acceptance letters. Mother watched from the window silent. Father was at Nathan's baseball game. A Mercedes sits in the driveway, new enough to suggest they're still clinging to appearances. Old habits die hard in the Mitchell family. Abigail. Mother's voice drifts from the porch. She materializes like a ghost, thinner than I remember, her perfectly coiffed hair now streaked with gray. We weren't expecting you. Clearly. I gesture at the unkempt yard. The garden club would be horrified. Her smile wavers. Won't you come in? Your father's in his study. Of course he is. The foyer still smells of lemon polish and regret. Family photos line the walls. Nathan's graduations, Nathan's wedding, Nathan's tech company launch. My absence speaks volumes. Father emerges from his study, jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. Papers litter his desk behind him, a war room of financial desperation. Abigail, you got our package. I got grandmother's locket. The one you gave to Jessica. We can explain. Save it. I pull out my phone, reading from the screen. Mitchell Developments is 3 months from bankruptcy. Your last 4 projects failed environmental impact assessments. Investors are pulling out. His face hardens. You've done your homework. Unlike Nathan's startup, my business education actually paid off, though I had to work 3 jobs to afford it. Mother steps forward. Darling, we know we made mistakes. Mistakes. I laugh. Is that what we're calling 2 decades of emotional neglect now? We wanted what was best. For Nathan. Always for Nathan. I moved to the family photos, touching one frame. Did you know he's living in Seattle now? Working for a competitor? Or are you too busy planning how to raid his trust fund too? They exchange glances. Bingo. That's why you're really panicking, isn't it? I turn, enjoying their discomfort. Nathan's trust fund is tied to the company's solvency. If Mitchell Developments goes under, his safety net disappears. We need your help, Father says quietly. Your expertise. My expertise comes with a price. I pull out a folder. I've drawn up terms. You want my help? Sign over your controlling interest in the company. All of it. Mother gasps. But that's everything? Yes. Just like the everything you gave Nathan while telling me to be grateful for scraps. I place the folder on Father's desk. You have 24 hours to decide. This is revenge, Father says, his voice tight. No, this is business. Revenge would be letting you crash and burn. I head for the door, then pause. Oh, and Mother? The locket stays with me. Consider it a down payment on my therapy bills. The drive home is silent until James speaks. That was brutal. That was necessary. I finger the locket. They're going to sign. How can you be sure? Because they are desperate, and because they still think they can manipulate me. I smile grimly. They'll sign, thinking they can find a way to regain control later. They don't realize this isn't about the company. What is it about? My phone buzzes, a text from Nathan. After 5 years of silence between us, his timing is interesting. It's about justice. And maybe. I read the message, my breath catching. Maybe I'm not the only one who wants it. Nathan's text glows on the screen. Heard you visited them. We need to talk. Change of plans, I tell James. We're going to Seattle. The locket feels heavy against my chest. Grandmother's photos watching this new chapter unfold. She always said family secrets have a way of surfacing, like bodies in a flood. Time to see what else floats to the surface when the waters rise. Nathan's Seattle apartment overlooks the water, all glass and steel and success. He opens the door looking nothing like the golden boy in our parents' photos, unshaven, wearing a faded tech company hoodie, shadows under his eyes. You look terrible, I say. You look expensive. He steps aside. Nice suit. Someone had to become the responsible one. The living room is sparse. No family photos. No traces of Jessica. A laptop sits open on the coffee table, surrounded by empty energy drink cans. On the screen, I glimpse familiar spreadsheets, Mitchell Development's financial records. You've been monitoring them, I say. Someone had to. He collapses onto the couch. Did you know Father mortgaged the house 3 times? To fund your startups? To fund his lies. Nathan runs a hand through his hair. Those environmental assessments that failed? He knew they would. He falsified the initial reports to secure investor funding. My stomach turns. That's fraud. That's just the beginning. He pulls up more documents. Remember my trust fund? The one they held over my head every time I questioned their decisions. The one they're trying to access now? Empty. His laugh is hollow. Has been for years. They've been sending me fake statements, probably hoping I'd never try to withdraw anything. I sink into an armchair. Why didn't you expose them? Same reason you didn't sue them for draining your college fund. They're still our parents. He looks at me. But you're planning something worse than exposure, aren't you? They asked for my help. And you're going to destroy them instead. They deserve it. Maybe. He closes the laptop. But there's something you should know first. Jessica didn't leave me. I sent her away. When I discovered what Father was doing, she wanted to go public. Said it was the right thing to do. What stopped you? Mother's cancer. The words hit like a slap. What? Stage 3. She's been hiding it for months. All that money they're desperate for? It's not just about the company. Her insurance won't cover the experimental treatment she needs. My carefully constructed revenge starts crumbling. Why didn't they tell me? Would you have listened? He meets my gaze. Or would you have seen it as another manipulation? My phone buzzes, Father's name on the screen. The signed contracts, probably. Everything I wanted, now tasting like ash. I'm not asking you to forgive them, Nathan says. God knows I haven't. But maybe there's a way to hold them accountable without destroying what's left of our family. There's nothing left to destroy. Then why are you really here, Abby? Why not just take their company and be done with it? Because revenge wasn't supposed to feel this hollow. Because somewhere between the locket and the lies, I'd hoped for. What? Understanding? Redemption? My phone buzzes again. A text from James. Your parents just left the contracts with Martha. She says something's wrong. Come home. I have to go. I stand, straightening my suit. Whatever you're planning with the fraud evidence. I'm not planning anything. Nathan's voice stops me at the door. But you should know I've been paying Mother's medical bills. Not because they deserve it, but because sometimes justice isn't about who deserves what. It's about who we choose to be when everything falls apart. I touch the locket at my throat. When did you get so wise? Around the same time you got so ruthless. He manages a small smile. We really are our parents' children, aren't we? The elevator ride down feels endless. My phone fills with messages. From James, from Martha, from Father. Each one more urgent than the last. Something about the contracts. Something about Mother. In the lobby, a breaking news alert catches my eye. Mitchell Development stock is plummeting. Father's name splashed across headlines. Words like investigation and federal charges jump out. Someone else has beaten me to revenge. The question is who? And more importantly, what am I going to do about it now that I know the whole truth? Or at least, what I think is the truth. In my family, those have always been 2 very different things. Martha's hands shake as she spreads the contracts across her kitchen table. These aren't the ones you drafted. I scan the documents, my legal training kicking in. The language is similar but twisted, corrupted. Like a funhouse mirror version of my original terms. They changed them. There's more. She slides over a USB drive. Oliver found this in Ethan's study while they were signing. He thought you should see it. The drive contains years of financial records, each file more damning than the last. Not just the environmental fraud Nathan mentioned. Systematic embezzlement, shell companies, offshore accounts. Mother's name appears frequently, her signature on documents that could send them both to prison. The cancer treatments, I murmur. They're not just running out of money, they're hiding it. From whom? The answer hits like a thunderbolt. From Nathan. He's been paying their medical bills, but they're pocketing the money. There are no treatments. James paces behind me. So your mother isn't sick? Oh, she's sick all right. My laugh sounds strange even to me. Just not with cancer. My phone lights up, Nathan calling. I let it ring. You need to tell him, James says. Do I? I stand needing to move. You didn't see him in Seattle. He's finally broken free. This would destroy him. And what about you? Martha touches my arm. What's this revenge costing you? Before I can answer, Oliver bursts in. Turn on the news. The television flickers to life. Father stands outside Mitchell Developments, surrounded by reporters. He looks smaller than I remember, diminished. But his voice carries the same authority it always had when laying blame at someone else's feet. Allegations are completely false. These documents were planted by a disgruntled family member attempting a hostile takeover. The room spins. He's getting ahead of the story. Framing me. He's using your revenge against you, James says quietly. My phone buzzes again, Nathan. This time I answer. Tell me you didn't do this, he says without preamble. I didn't. But I know who did. They're saying you fabricated everything. That you're trying to steal the company. Nathan. I trusted you. His voice cracks. I told you about Mother's cancer, and you used it. There is no cancer. Silence stretches between us, thick with decades of manipulation. What? Check your bank records. Every payment you've made for her treatments, it's gone to offshore accounts. They're running a con, Nathan. On both of us. The line goes dead. Martha touches my shoulder. What will you do? On screen, Father continues his performance, playing the victim with practiced ease. Mother stands beside him, dabbing artfully at her eyes. The perfect picture of parents betrayed by their child. You know what's funny? I remove grandmother's locket, studying it in the harsh kitchen light. I actually believed, just for a moment in Seattle, that this could end differently. That understanding the whole truth might change something. It did change something, James says. It changed you. Did it? I open my laptop, fingers flying over keys. Or did it just remind me who I'm dealing with? Abigail. They're not just destroying themselves anymore. They're trying to destroy Nathan too. Again. I hit enter, watching as years of carefully gathered evidence uploads to multiple servers. Sometimes protection looks like destruction. And sometimes, Martha says softly, it looks like letting go. My phone lights up with notifications. The evidence is spreading, undeniable this time. On television, I watch reporters receiving alerts, their questions to my parents turning sharper. Father's mask slips for just a moment. He knows. You're right, I tell Martha standing. It's time to let go. But first, I pick up my keys. I need to see my brother. Because some things need to be destroyed before they can be rebuilt. And some truths need to be heard face to face, even if they break us both. Nathan's apartment door is already open when I arrive. Inside, papers carpet the floor like fallen leaves. Bank statements, medical bills, transfer records. He sits amid the chaos, a bottle of scotch by his knee. I found more. His voice is sandpaper rough. Want to see what else our loving parents did with my money? Nathan, did you know they bought a condo in Miami? He laughs, ugly and sharp. While I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for Mother's non-existent chemotherapy, they were shopping for beach views. I step over the papers, each one a new betrayal documented in black and white. We need to. To what? Get revenge. He looks up, eyes fever bright. You're already doing that, aren't you? The evidence you released is everywhere. Federal investigators are probably at their door right now. My phone buzzes, Father's number. I silence it. They called you too? Nathan asks. They've been calling all morning. Begging for help? His laugh turns bitter. The prodigal daughter, their last hope? I'm nobody's hope. I pick up a bank statement. And neither are you. Not anymore. He grabs the bottle, but I move faster, snatching it away. Give it back. No. I set it on a high shelf. You don't get to drink yourself numb while they're still out there spinning their lies. What's left to spin? The truth's out. Is it? I pull out my laptop. Because I found something else. Something worse. The screen fills with documents. Property deeds, trust agreements, shell company records. All bearing the same signature, Nathan's. His face drains of color. I never signed these. No, but Mother did. Remember all those papers she had you sign when you were 19? The routine paperwork for your trust fund. She wouldn't. She did. They've been using your identity for years, building a paper trail. If this goes to court, I meet his eyes. You could go down with them. The silence stretches, heavy with implications. Finally, he whispers, "Why are you showing me this?" Because you have a choice to make. I close the laptop. Right now, the evidence I release doesn't include these documents. You can walk away clean, start fresh. But they're drowning, and they'll drag you down with them if they can. They'll claim you were complicit, that you knew everything. His phone lights up, Mother's number. We both stare at it until it goes dark. What would you do? He asks. I'd burn it all down. The words taste like truth. But I'm not you, Nathan. I never had their love to lose. He flinches. You think I still love them? After this, I think you're still hoping there's something left to save. I move toward the door. You have 24 hours before the FBI finds these documents. Make your choice. Where are you going? To finish what they started. I pause at the threshold. The question is, will you be standing with them when I do? Or with me? His voice stops me. They'll never forgive you for this. I stopped needing their forgiveness the day they stopped being worthy of mine. Outside, my phone buzzes again. This time it's Martha. They're at my house, she says without preamble. They're desperate, Abigail. They're talking about leaving the country. Let them try. I start my car. The FBI will be there within the hour. And Nathan? I watch through the window as my brother picks up his phone, staring at our mother's number like it might bite him. Nathan has to make his own choices now. I pull away from the curb. Just like I did. The sun catches grandmother's locket in my rearview mirror, sending fractured light across the dashboard. Some legacies are meant to be broken. Some families need to shatter before they can be rebuilt. And some choices once made can never be unmade. I turn toward Martha's house, toward whatever ending awaits us all. Martha's living room has become a war zone. Mother paces by the window. Father slumps in an armchair, and between them, spread across the coffee table, lies the wreckage of their lives. My evidence. Their lies. 20 years of manipulation laid bare. You've destroyed everything, Father says quietly. No. I remain standing, keeping distance between us. You did that yourself. Mother turns, tears streaming. The FBI is coming. Our accounts are frozen. What do you expect us to do? Confess. Take responsibility. For once in your lives, face the consequences of your actions. Like you're facing yours? Father's voice hardens. You think this revenge makes you righteous? Look what you've done to your brother. The door opens. Nathan steps in, looking haunted. Our eyes meet, and I see my own pain reflected there. I found the offshore accounts, he says. All of them. Mother reaches for him. Darling, we can explain. Don't. He recoils from her touch. Don't call me that. Not after what you did with my signature. Father stands. Everything we did was for this family. Was it? I pull out my phone, playing a recording. Father's voice fills the room, discussing shell companies with his lawyers. Then Mother's voice, calculating how to use Nathan's identity without his knowledge. Turn it off, Mother whispers. Why? Isn't this what family means to you? Using people? Manipulating them. You sanctimonious little. Father lunges for the phone. Nathan steps between us. Don't touch her. The room freezes. In 20 years, my brother has never defended me against them. Father's face darkens. So this is how it ends? Both of you against us. This ended years ago, I say. You just couldn't see it through your own lies. Sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Mother collapses onto the couch. Please, Abigail. If you ever loved us. That's the problem. My voice cracks. I did love you. Both of you. I spent years trying to earn what you gave Nathan freely. And even now, even knowing everything, part of me still. The words die as headlights sweep across the windows. FBI vehicles pulling up. There's a back door, Nathan says suddenly. If you leave now. Nathan, no. I grab his arm. They'll charge you as an accomplice. Maybe that's what I deserve. He won't meet my eyes. I knew something was wrong. I should have stopped them years ago. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? He pulls away. I was their golden child, remember? I watched them hurt you, and I did nothing. Footsteps on the porch. Heavy knocking. Father straightens his jacket, a lifetime of privilege in the gesture. Linda, come hier. Mother moves to his side. Automatic is breathing. They stand together, united one last time. When this is over, Father says, remember who chose to destroy this family. The door bursts open. Agents pour in reading rights, securing the room. I watch my parents being handcuffed and feel nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just emptiness. Nathan sinks onto the couch, head in his hands. What happens now? Now. I touch grandmother's locket. Now we learn who we are without their shadows over us. And if we're just as broken as they are? Before I can answer, an agent approaches. Miss Mitchell, we found something in your father's private files. About your grandmother's estate. He hands me a document. As I read, my hands start shaking. What is it? Nathan asks. The locket. I can barely form the words. It wasn't grandmother's. It was a replica. They sold the original years ago. Used the money for your first startup. Nathan stares at the locket, then at our parents being led away. Even their apologies were lies. I watch the patrol cars pull away, red and blue lights painting shadows across Martha's walls. In the end, revenge tastes like ashes. But truth? Truth tastes like freedom. And freedom, I'm learning, can be the loneliest thing in the world. The prison visiting room smells of industrial cleaner and despair. Mother sits across from me, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on her frame, while Father occupies the next table with Nathan. Close enough to hear, too far to touch, a perfect metaphor for our family. The prosecutors offered a deal, I say, sliding papers across the table. If you testify against Father's business partners, they'll reduce the charges. Mother's hands remain folded in her lap. You want me to betray your father too? Like you betrayed Nathan? Or me? Everything we did. Don't. My voice cuts like glass. Don't say it was for family. At the next table, Father's voice rises. They're trying to split us up, Linda. Don't listen. They split us up years ago, Nathan says quietly. We just couldn't see it. Mother reaches for the papers, then stops. There's something you should know first. About the locket. The fake one? Save your explanations. No. She pulls an envelope from her jumpsuit. About the real one. My hands shake as I open it. Inside, a photograph, grandmother wearing the locket, but it's different from the replica. Larger, with distinct engravings. It wasn't just jewelry, Mother continues. It was a key to a safety deposit box in Switzerland. Your father's emergency fund. Father stands abruptly. Linda, stop. They deserve to know, Ethan. All of it. Know what? Nathan moves to my table. What else have you been hiding? Mother's eyes fill with tears. The money we took from Nathan's account? It wasn't just for us. Half went to that box. Insurance in case everything fell apart. And now, I lean forward. Where's the key? Ask your brother. Nathan goes still. What? The night Jessica left, when you were drunk and desperate, you came to us. Said you needed money. We gave you the original locket as collateral. The world tilts. I turn to Nathan. You had it? All this time. He backs away, color draining from his face. I don't. I was drinking then, I don't remember. Check your storage unit, Mother says. The one in Seattle. Box 247. Father slams his hand on the table. Enough. No. Mother stands, stronger than I've ever seen her. I'm done protecting your secrets, Ethan. Done watching you pit our children against each other. Guards move toward us, drawn by the commotion. Nathan, I grab his arm. Is it true? He runs a hand through his hair. Maybe. Those months are blur, but I have a box there. I never opened it. Father laughs bitterly. So this is your revenge, Linda? Turning them against me. No. She signs the prosecution's deal with steady hands. This is me choosing our children over your pride. Finally, the guards approach. Visiting hours are over. Easton, Mandrissing. Nathan, we need to. I know. He's already pulling out his phone. First flight to Seattle. Mother catches my hand as I turn to leave. The box, Abigail. It's not just money. What else? The truth. About everything. Your father's real business partners. The ones even the FBI doesn't know about. Father lunges forward, but guards restrain him. Linda, don't. Box 247, she repeats, releasing my hand. And Abigail? I'm sorry. For everything. Outside, Nathan paces the parking lot. You think she's telling the truth? About the box? Yes. I touched the fake locket. About being sorry? I don't know. What now? Now. I look at my phone. James has already booked our flights. Now we find out what's worth more than money to our father. What secret was big enough to destroy our family to protect? Nathan nods, a shadow of his old confidence returning. Together. I start the car. It's time to finish this. All of it. Behind us, the prison looms like a fortress. But ahead? Ahead lies Seattle, box 247, and whatever truth waits to shatter what's left of the Mitchell family legacy. Some revelations come too late for forgiveness. But maybe, just maybe, they come right on time for understanding. Box 247 contains a single manila envelope. No money. No grand revelations. Just photographs and a handwritten letter from grandmother, dated weeks before her death. I can't, Nathan says, pushing it toward me. You read it. The storage facility's fluorescent lights hum as I unfold the pages. Grandmother's elegant script fills each one, telling a story we never knew. How she discovered father's real business partners, human traffickers using his developments as transit points. How she gathered evidence, planning to expose everything. How she died in a car accident 3 days before she could act. She knew. My voice echoes in the empty corridor. She tried to stop him. There's more. Nathan pulls out the photos. Father with men we don't recognize. Properties we never knew existed. Bank statements showing millions flowing through shell companies. The FBI needs this. Wait. Nathan grabs my arm. Look at the dates. These transactions, they're still happening. Even with father in prison. Understanding hits like lightning. He's not in charge. He never was. He was protecting us. Nathan slumps against the storage unit. In his twisted way. Playing the villain so we'd never look deeper. That doesn't excuse what they did to us. No. But maybe it explains it. He hands me the original locket. Grandmother's real legacy. What now? I study the locket, seeing it clearly for the first time. Not just jewelry. Not just a key. A choice. Now we finish what grandmother started. I pull out my phone. But first, I need to call Martha. The conversation is brief. When I hang up, Nathan watches me expectantly. Mother's testimony, he asks. The prosecutors are expanding their investigation. But she made one condition. We stay out of it. Completely. She's still trying to protect us. Maybe. Or maybe she's finally choosing to protect the right things. We lock the storage unit. Evidence safely documented and encrypted. The Seattle rain falls soft around us as we walk to my car. I'm selling my company, Nathan says suddenly. Starting fresh. Something honest this time. Need a partner? He stops walking. You do that? After everything. Not for them. I touch the locket. For grandmother. For us. What about revenge? I thought revenge meant destroying everything they built. I watched the rain wash the city clean. But maybe real justice means building something better in its place. My phone buzzes. James texting about dinner plans, normal life continuing despite everything. Nathan peers at the message. He's good for you, he says. Keeps you honest. Like Jessica tried to do for you? Yeah. He manages a small smile. Maybe it's time I called her. We reach the car just as the rain intensifies. Before getting in, Nathan turns to me. Remember when we were kids? How you used to tell me stories about pirates finding treasure. You always wanted the pirates to win. But they never did in your versions. The treasure always went to someone who deserved it more. He meets my eyes. You were right then too. The drive to the airport is quiet, each of us lost in thought. The evidence is scheduled to reach the FBI tomorrow. Mother's expanded testimony starts next week. Father's choices will have to be his own now. At the terminal, Nathan hugs me. Our first real embrace in years. We could have been this, he whispers. All along, we could have been family. We are now. I step back. That's what matters. He boards his flight to San Francisco, where Jessica works at a tech startup. I head home to James, to Martha, to the life I've built despite everything. The locket rests heavy against my chest, grandmother's final secret safe inside. Some treasures aren't meant to be found. Some justice comes not from exposure, but from choosing what to build from the ashes of truth. I touch the locket one last time, then board my plane. Behind me, Seattle's rain washes everything clean. Ahead lies the harder path. Not revenge. Not even justice. Just the slow, steady work of becoming whole.